My personal score is 8.5. The most common misconceptions that a lot of students and a lot of candidates do have about the exam. Most importantly, you have to listen to English speech on a daily basis. A lot of students are struggling with is actually reading. Speaking section consists of 3 parts. Your IELTS writing, you have to learn how to write academically. Hello everybody, I am Müstəcəb and I'm currently working at Barattson as an IELTS instructor and expert. The purpose of communicating today with you is that I'd like to share certain things about IELTS, and most importantly, I'd like to share the most common misconceptions that a lot of students and a lot of candidates do have about the exam. So without further ado, let's jump into it. First of all, as we know, we have got 4 major sections in IELTS. The test itself starts with listening. And in listening, one of the main things that students don't understand is the best way to improve your listening is through practice, and most importantly, you have to listen to English speech on a daily basis. If you are just doing listening tests every day and you are not analyzing your mistakes, and you are not listening to an English speech daily, you are not going to be able to score high. So number 1 priority is to do those tests and later on carefully analyze every single mistake you are making. Besides that, to gain complete efficiency, you have to listen to a natural English speech every day. That's how you will be able to succeed. Number 2 section we have in IELTS is reading. Reading is one of the most underrated and overrated sections. Well, why it's underrated? Because a lot of students underestimate their ability to improve their reading. They think that the only way to improve reading is to do as many tests as possible. But that's not the case. You can do as many tests as possible given the fact that you also work on every single mistake you are making. That's how you can improve your reading. And another reason why a lot of students overlook the importance of reading is that they do not analyze 3 factors. And those 3 factors are, number 1, you have to improve your reading comprehension. Reading comprehension is your ability to understand the things that you are reading. And once you improve that, you will be able to maximize your reading score. Number 2 is time management. Once you learn how to manage your time, 1 hour obstacle is not a big deal for you. And in this 1 hour, you will be able to maximize your potential and minimize the mistakes that you are making. And at last but not least, number 3 is vocabulary. If you are good at vocabulary, if you possess a great deal of phenomenal vocabulary, reading articles, reading passages are not a big deal. You will be able to score very high and succeed in the exam. The 3rd section I would like to share some recommendations about is writing. Writing is actually one of my favorite sections of IELTS because it requires every candidate to score very high and to work super hard on their weaknesses and disadvantageous parts. Number 1 thing you have to do while trying to score high in writing is to learn how to write academically. Once you are a successful academic writer, writing is not a big deal. You are going to score very high. The main misconception a lot of students do tend to have is that they are trying to memorize the pattern structures, the template structures that they think can actually enable them to score high. Well, that helps to a certain extent because you are implementing the strategy of using different vocabulary, different words and different keywords, but the best way to score super high in writing is to improve your academic writing skills. And while doing so, you have to pay attention to 4 main factors. Number 1, you have to learn how to score high in your task response, task achievement. Task response or task achievement is actually your ability to respond to the question properly without leaving anything out and without going off topic. Number two is coherence and cohesion. Basically, you have to make sentences that make sense, that are not confusing, that are not perplexing to an examiner, and you have to connect those sentences through a very efficient usage of linking words. Next comes my favorite, which is lexical resource. It's how well you present your vocabulary and what kind of academic language, very specific to the topic, you are implementing. And at last but not least, it's grammar range and accuracy. Well, what that means, it means you have to use as much of complex grammar as possible and as accurately as possible. A lot of students use a lot of grammatical structures, grammatical complexities, but in reality, they are using it in a very wrong way. So what ends up happening? They are losing a lot of scores in grammar range and accuracy section. Next comes one of the most favorite and celebrated sections of candidates, which is speaking. And students tend to like speaking very much because they actually think that in speaking, the most important thing is to talk as much as possible and to express themselves very eloquently through the usage of a lot of complex words and complex grammar structures. Again, that's true to a certain extent, but as we know, our speaking section consists of 3 parts. And in speaking, you don't really have time to talk that much. So the best concept, the best strategy to score high in speaking is to become a capable speaker who can actually compact all the information and all the ideas in these 15 minutes. In part 1, basically, you have to talk about yourself. You may have a topic about your hometown or your favorite pet or the flowers that you gave to somebody last week. These topics and these questions, they require you to be very concrete and specific and topic oriented. Try not to go off topic in these parts and try not to give arbitrary, groundless, and somewhat darky answers. Your job is to be as clear as possible in part 1. In part 2, you are given a card and you have got 1 minute to prepare for your answer and 1 to 2 minutes to answer the questions that you have in the card. A main misconception that a lot of students do tend to have is that they think if they answer questions one by one, they are going to be able to score very high. In reality, answering questions one by one in a very lackluster way will not enable you to score high. What will enable you to score high in part 2 is your ability to tell a story. So part 2 is basically a storytelling. You have to make up a story in which all the questions will find their answers. And that story has to be very comprehensive, rich in vocabulary, and rich in complex grammar structures. Part 3 requires you to be super thorough and meticulous in answering every question. It's basically the possibility for you to solve world global problems. In this case, you are having much more freedom to express yourself and try to talk as much as possible. In this section, the examiner may ask you very complex questions regarding climate change, regarding electric cars, regarding overpopulation, materialism, and etc. So those questions require you to answer with patience, with attention, and with good empirical examples. That's how you can actually succeed. And the best way to avoid making common mistakes in part 3 is to understand questions profoundly. Do not let any word from the question slip away. Try to catch every single meaning and every single definition of every single word. That's how you will be able to answer the question properly. And eventually, obviously, you will succeed. Well, I would like to share my personal score with you. I would like to tell you that my personal score is 8.5. And I'm regularly passing the exam. To be precise, I'm passing IELTS exam, academic exam every year. I've learned all these tips, all these tricks from passing the exam regularly. These tricks have enabled me to educate and to teach students here at Barattson Center. At Barattson, we are implementing very academic prowess and professionalism. With this professionalism and academic prowess, we are teaching students who score very high. My personal students, they score from 6.5 up until skyrocketing score 8. The students whom I'm educating, they are fully capable of implementing the strategies and techniques that I have developed through my experience and through my participation in the exams and different trainings and conferences. If you also want to succeed high and to score very efficiently in the exam, we are waiting you at this center. And IELTS is not just a test that will enable you to study abroad, to improve your career opportunities, and to get better at relationships and communicating with people, but also IELTS will change your life fundamentally and profoundly. Therefore, guys, we are all waiting for you at Barattson Center. Our staff and our students who have succeeded in the previous exams and who have scored high are ready to help you and are willing to guide you in this arduous journey. IELTS is not just an international exam. It's not just helpful for your relationships, for your education and job opportunities. It's a lifestyle. So to succeed at IELTS, you have to turn it into your lifestyle, and that's the only way you will be able to score high, as my students do here at Barattson Education Center. Now I'd like to talk to you about the things that you should do in the IELTS exam and the things that you shouldn't. The very first thing that you should do is to consistently prepare for the exam. A lot of students come up to me and the main question they ask, how I can get IELTS very quickly. Well, you can if you put in a lot of work, but that generates a lot of chaos and a lot of misconceptions. So at the end of the day, you have to remember that consistency beats intensity. The more consistent you are, the better you are going to get at IELTS. The thing that you should avoid doing, you shouldn't do, is to focus on the test instead of on your mistakes. Number one misconception people have is that they want to do as many tests as possible, but that's not how it works. The way to success goes through analysis of your mistakes. If you analyze your mistakes very carefully and then apply your new techniques and strategies in doing new tests, you will 100% be able to succeed in the exam. Besides this, I'd like to touch the topic of the difference between paper-based and computer-based exams. Currently, as you may have heard, we've got two types of exams: paper-based exam and computer-based exam. The very first thing we have to consider here is time. If you want to receive your score, your certificate, in a shorter period of time, you should take a computer-based exam. For example, paper-based exam results come out in 13 days, but computer-based exams results come out in 2 to 5 days. So if you want to get your certificate as fast as you want, you should take computer-based exam. So IELTS is not just an exam, it's a path to a better future. If you want to succeed in IELTS, come and take my classes at Barattson. I will help you to get good at it and to have a life that you desire for.